Hello everyone, and welcome to the new video of Global Village. The U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff General Charles Brown earlier expressed his view. He wants the service to develop an affordable lightweight warplane to replace the hundreds of Cold War legacy fighters. You may think it sounds very familiar, and it's because 25 years ago, the U.S. Air Force launched the development of an affordable, lightweight fighter to replace hundreds of Cold War vintage F-16s. But, over 25 years of research and development, the lightweight replacement fighter got heavier and more expensive, as the Air Force and the lead contractor Lockheed Martin packed it with more and more new technologies. Yes, we are talking about the F-35. The 25-ton stealth warplane has become the very problem it was supposed to solve. And now the US Air Force needs a new fighter to solve the F-35 problem. So where did it all went wrong? Let's find out. Some critics claim that the Joint Strike Fighter program has already cost the taxpayers more than $1.5 trillion. And even with this massive investment of time and money, it still has many flaws, and the operational capabilities of all variants are less than desired by the Air Force, Navy and Marines. There are a range of remaining, and some worsening problems with the F-35 program, including hundreds of critical performance deficiencies and maintenance problems. Dr. Michael Gilmore, a retired official from Department of Defense, and a strong critic of the program, raised serious questions about the capabilities of the Joint Strike Fighter. He claims that, if the F-35 aircraft is used in combat, it will need support from other aerial platforms to locate and avoid sophisticated ground radars, acquire targets, and engage formations of enemy fighter aircraft due to unresolved performance deficiencies and limited weapons carriage availability. Back in 2018, in a public statement, the JPO acknowledged the issues pointed out by Dr. Michael Gilmore. However, they maintained that our industry and international partners are working on the issues to be resolved in the near future. The JPO's acknowledgement of the numerous issues are fine, but it raises serious concerns about the capability of the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, as it's the most expensive weapon program in the human history, a program that has been unable to live up to its own very modest promises. The F-35 Joint Strike Fighter was sold to the American public as a plane that will have a vast array of sophisticated electronics on board. In almost every article in the past 25 years insisted that the F-35 will have the capability to gather massive amount of information through its onboard sensors, then this information will be shared with other platforms. The data it receives through its sensors, and from outside sources through data link, will be merged by the F-35 computing system to give the pilot an unparalleled situational awareness. This process is designed to allow the pilot to dominate the battle space. However, based on the statistics from intensive test training, and the sorties it flew during its operational flights, it appears that its electronics actually interfere with the pilot's ability to survive and prevail. This is a serious concern for the pilots who flew these machines. Overall problems with the F-35's sensors, computers, and software, including creating false targets and reporting inaccurate locations, have been severe enough that the test teams at Edwards Air Force Base have rated them red, meaning they are unable to perform the combat tasks expected of them. One of the many systems, the Electro optical targeting system, was singled out by the pilots as inferior in resolution and range, as compared to the systems being used on legacy fighters. The Electro optical targeting system was designed to help the F-35 detect and destroy the hostile fighters from far enough to make the dogfighting a thing of the past. Both infrared search and track system and a laser rangefinder designator are mounted close to the nose of the aircraft. These sensors swivel under computer control to track targets over long ranges, and display the imagery of that target on the pilot's helmet visor display. But the limitations of the electro-optical targeting system, including the image degradation with humidity, will force the pilots to fly closer to acquire a clear image, in order to lock the hostile target and take a shot. Thus the system limitations will force the F-35 to get closer to hostile target, which will compromise its element of surprise and its stealth advantage, and will enable the opponent to shoot first. This problem has also been marked as red by the pilots who flew the F-35. Another feature, that was touted very often in every briefing by the Joint Program Office, is the DAS system. The Distributed Aperture System, or DAS, is supposed to give the F-35 an unprecedented situational awareness. The DAS is one of the main sensors that is feeding display to the infamous helmet-mounted system, that costs $600,000 a unit. The DAS system has 6 video cameras that are distributed around the fuselage. This gives the pilot a 360 degrees view in all directions. The view from these cameras are projected onto the visor of the helmet. At the same time, the helmet visor will display the flight instruments, the target and threat symbols derived from the sensors on board, and data feed to an F-35 through data link. This was supposed to be a revolutionary system that will give an unprecedented advantage to the pilot flying the F-35, but again, this system has also failed to live up to its hype. And it's because of the problems with excessive false targets, unstable jittered images, and information overload. The F-35 pilots are turning off some of the sensor and computer inputs, and relying instead on simplified displays, or the more traditional instrument panel. So again, this system is only slightly better than the ones it is replacing. The test pilots also had difficulty with the helmet-mounted display during some weapons delivery accuracy tests. One test pilot described the display in the helmet as operationally unusable, and potentially unsafe because of symbol clutter obscuring targets. While attempting to test fire short-range AIM-9 air-to-air missiles against a target, the pilots reported that their view of the target was blocked by the symbols displayed on their helmet visors. Some pilots also reported that the symbols were unstable while they were attempting to track targets. Then there is the matter of pilots actually seeing dual targets, due to false tracks appeared on the visor. There is a problem with taking all of the information generated by the various onboard sensors, and merging them into a coherent picture for the pilot, a process called sensor fusion. One testing pilot reported that the different instruments, like the plane's radar and the EOTS, are detecting the same target, but the computer compiling the information is displaying the single target as two separate targets. They have tried to work around this problem by shutting off some of the sensors to make the superfluous targets disappear. And as bad as the problem is in a single plane, it's much worse when several planes are attempting to share data across the network. The F-35 has a multi-function advanced data link, or the MADL. It is designed to enable the plane to share information with other F-35s in order to give all the pilots a common picture of the battle space. It does this by taking all of the data generated by each plane, and combining it into a single shared view of the world. But this system is also creating erroneous, or split images of targets, while sometimes it drops the images of targets altogether, causing confusion inside the cockpits about what's there and what's not. All of this means that the systems were meant to give the pilots an unprecedented situational awareness on the battle space, while right now it's doing the exact opposite. Ineffective as a fighter, the F-35 was intended to be a multi-role aircraft from its inception. However, it stacks up so far in its various roles, including in comparison to each aircraft it's supposed to replace. This news is not encouraging at all. The F-35's shortcomings as an air-to-air fighter have already been well documented. It famously lost in a mocked within visual range combat to an F-16, which it's supposed to replace. The F-35 lost repeatedly in air-to-air maneuvering despite the fact that the test was rigged in its favor, because the employed F-16 was the heavier two-seater version, and was further loaded down with heavy drag-inducing external fuel tanks to hinder its maneuverability. One may argue that the F-35's low radar signature will keep it out of within visual range situations, but the history of air combat is that within visual range engagements cannot be avoided altogether. Missile failures, the effects of radar jamming and hard-to-predict factors tend to force WVR engagements time and again. The F-35 apologists try to dismiss such issues, by claiming that the F-35 was never intended for close-in aerial dogfighting, a claim belied by the Airforce's insistence that the jet be equipped with a short-range air-to-air gun. As an air-to-air fighter, the F-35's combat capability is extremely limited, because the F-35 will never be able to carry more than 4 missiles if it wants to retain its stealth characteristic. Combat effectiveness at risk. In all top-notch air forces, a fighter pilot requires at least 30 flying hours a month to maintain and improve his combat skills on a particular plane. The United States has always maintained this standard ever since its Air Force came into being. However, due to the F-35's unprecedented complexity, the corresponding reliability, and its enormous maintenance cost, the pilots cannot get enough flying hours to develop the required combat skills as per standard. A single flying hour of an F-35 can cost $44,000 including fuel consumption and maintenance. So if an F-35 pilot flies it for 30 hours a month, which is an established standard, then it will cost the US Air Force a sum of $16 million per year. And this is the cost of flying hours for just one fighter pilot. If the US Air Force inducts 500 of these, and wants to train 1,000 fighter pilots for the F-35, then it will cost the US Air Force an insane amount of $16 billion a year. This makes 2 of the entire US defense budget. If the US Air Force opts for dropping its own standard for training of fighter pilots on F-35, then it will have unbearable consequences in future air wars against any great power. Because, even with superior technology, less skilled pilots could be outmatched in the skies by highly trained pilots flying less sophisticated aircraft. This is the single largest cause of the F-35's lack of combat effectiveness. The Director of Operational Test and Evaluation's latest report is yet more proof that the F-35 program will continue to be a massive drain on time and resources for years to come, and will provide the US Armed Forces with a second-rate combat aircraft less able to perform its missions than the legacy aircraft it is meant to replace. Conclusion: the F-35 Program Office has reached a crucial decision point. Bold action is required now to salvage something from the national disaster that is the Joint Strike Fighter. The administration should continue the review of the F-35 program. But officials should not just talk to the generals and executives, as they have no incentive to tell the hard truth, because they have a vested financial interest in making sure the program survives, regardless of its capability. They are not telling the whole story. There are many more people lower down the food chain with other point of views. That's all on this topic for now. For more videos and updates, you can subscribe our YouTube channel and press the bell icon. Thank you for watching our video. Take care and have a great day.